Yo, what's up, family? This is the War Report right back at you. Coming back to recap semifinal games. Yesterday, we had at least one good one. And of course, we got a lot of trash talk to get out of the way about how some of this stuff turned out. A few things planned out, came out exactly as we spoke of, a few things did not. Before we get into all of that, Twitter, Instagram, the War Report right here. Y'all follow us. If you weren't following yesterday, you missed a lot of good tweets, a lot of trash talk going on. A few people trying to jump in and troll about some stuff that had absolutely nothing to do with us. Like, I have no idea where that came from. Some guy thinking we were LSU fans. I'm like, you clearly don't read before you start tweeting, but all right, whatever.
He was so. He was
Yeah. And then, if you're on YouTube right now, make sure you're clicking that like button and subscribe to the channel so you can hear more about us talking football, knowledge, and nonsense. All of that has nothing to do with anything, but we did win the Iron Bowl. 48-45. Right down there in the bottom. Yeah, right down there in the bottom, as you can see where you can follow us. I am your man, Mike Jones. I got my man B. Will in here. Caesar in the building, Mike G. What up, fellas? How are we feeling about the thrashing that LSU put on Oklahoma and the dub that Clemson got against Ohio State? We'll start with the obvious blowout. So not a lot to talk about there. SEC dominance. We gonna claim that, or we just gonna just say LSU did their thing? What's up?
That's LSU doing their thing. As much as we look at what LSU's deficiencies may have been coming into the playoffs, it sort of feels like it's their year. Like it really feels like that. Even when we played a very close game against them with a very mediocre offense and mediocre quarterback play, it felt like they were very gettable. They were beatable, is what it felt like. Them beating Bama didn't make them feel like they couldn't be beaten because Bama had their own flaws. But I don't know, man. They look like they at some point along the way. I don't know if it was them beating Bama, and then they started to believe in themselves. And I'm not saying it's like they couldn't believe in themselves before, but a team really kind of starts to round into form when they got it. And they have, and I don't think it's necessarily about the yards they gave up to Ole Miss anymore. I don't think any one deficiency we've seen from them in one game or even two is the story of the team. I think the team has believed in itself, it's bought into its own hype, and they are actually as good as they think they are. And it just might be their year.
Yeah.
I agree. I think the turning point that B's talking about happened over the last 3 games of the season when the defense got healthy. I think that was it. So some of the things that you're talking about with the points they gave up to Ole Miss, I mean, even with some of the deficiencies they had, like Auburn was the only team that even really sniffed beating them. I don't count Bama because they were down big in that game and kind of had to fight back. And even though the box score says it was close, it wasn't as close as the box score. Even though, again, Bama, was playing against a hobbled LSU defense, and they put up points, but they put up points on everybody this year. I think Bama's offense was pretty otherworldly. And quite honestly, of all the teams in the current playoff, I don't think the other 3 teams have a better offense than Bama. So, even with Mac Jones at quarterback, honestly, I think their receivers, running backs, offensive line, I think they are that solid. So it makes what LSU has been able to do even more impressive. Now, the only thing about this game for me that stood out was I didn't think that Joe Burrow could get any better, and it looked like he got better than what we've seen. And the kicker for me was what they did against Georgia in that SEC championship. I thought I still think that Georgia has a formidable defense to go in and do what he did against that defense. In a game that was never close. I was so impressed. He made just about every throw. He threw for just under 500 yards in 3 quarters of play. If they had not called the dogs off, LSU could have scored 100 in this game if they wanted to.
Yeah.
I believe they could have scored 100 points in this game if they wanted to. It was an impressive showing by them, by the number 1 team. I think they proved that they're number 1. It was all around. On the other side of the ball, I don't really think Oklahoma has anything to hang their head about, man. I think it's ran into a juggernaut.
Oklahoma's defensive game plan was trash, though. Like I don't know. Like when I sat there and watched what they were doing defensively, I was just like, have y'all watched any tape on LSU? Like they were playing bailout technique on the back end. They weren't pressing, which Oklahoma has never really been that tough physical defense.
A lot of
but
Big 12 schools don't do that. A lot of Big 12 schools don't play like that.
They don't. But I'm just saying though, like I understand you don't typically play like that, but have you watched tape on this team and said to yourself, we're going to concede slant routes. We're going to give a ton of cushion so that all their rubs and picks have maximum space to do what they're supposed to do. Like that was their strategy going in, was like, yeah, I know they're really good at doing this against everybody else. They're not going to do that against us. We're just going to play our game. And they got destroyed.
Yeah,
it wasn't even close.
Yeah, I think they would have got destroyed either way, honestly.
Right. I don't think it really mattered.
I don't think that they had.
Give yourself a chance.
DBs to play man going into that game. They could not play press.
Right.
I believe Georgia, Jefferson, and
if
Chase
you ain't been doing it all year, you ain't gonna do it, fam.
Yeah, I mean
that's the reason why I didn't think Oklahoma's defense had a shot in this game. I was just hoping their offense would perform a little better than they did, and that was what was disappointing for me, was that they didn't come in offensively and have anything to offer. Like it was just, it was putrid, man. Like their pass blocking was terrible. Hurts was running for his life the entire first half of that game until they stopped.
Put any of that on him. I don't think you could put any.
No, I'm not saying. I don't think Jalen Hurts played a bad game. I think that they got destroyed up front. Their offensive line was doing absolutely nothing, and LSU on the back end was playing really great coverage. So even the times when he had time to try to find somebody, he was getting coverage sacks, or he was trying to run out of the pocket just because his time was running out. So it was bad. It was terrible.
So was it more Oklahoma's offense or was it LSU's defense?
I think it's a combination, because you look at plays like the flea flicker play, right? That was a great coverage by the safety coming over. Like he didn't bite at all. He was just like, okay, I see what's happening in front of me. There's only one guy breaking deep into this coverage, and he came over and made a great play. You look at some of like CeeDee Lamb really only got free a couple of times the entirety of that game. So they had a good game plan to say, all right, anybody but this guy is going to beat us. Even though when they got on the board first, it was CeeDee Lamb getting open for that was showing, okay, we've got a good play caller here in Lincoln Riley who knows how to isolate our guy against the safety. They just couldn't do it enough. It was I don't know, man. I definitely think I have to give all the credit to LSU being more prepared and just having the better horses in the race.
Yeah.
Yeah. No doubt. Sometimes you just run head first into a buzzsaw. Yeah. And that's what happened with Oklahoma yesterday. They got beat on both sides.
I was really impressed that the layoff didn't seem like it affected them at all, honestly. I thought there might be a chance that they might come out slow after such a long layoff, and they came out all gas, no brakes.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. I felt bad for them after the first quarter of the game.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, I gotta give a shout out to that dude on Twitter. He was real salty about some no calls.
And he wasn't even an Oklahoma fan. He was just some random guy who was like, I was like, dude, what are you talking about?
He just must have been anti-SEC.
Here talking to us about some no calls when they losing by 35 points, right?
Now I will say that pass interference call was pretty egregious. Like it definitely should have been called.
No doubt.
The illegal lineman downfield stuff that he was talking about, like, get out of here. Like, come on, man. Like that's I don't know. You're just reaching for stuff at this point in time.
In the age of RPOs, you're going to have that's like synonymous with a holding call. Like how many holds can you call? You can call a holding every play. Sometimes they're just going to let those go. So
we definitely know about that.
Right.
But at the time that he made his comment, though, like it was
out of reach.
Yeah, it was clear that they just couldn't stop him, period. Like those calls had no bearing on the outcome of that game.
Right.
It wasn't, even if they had made those calls, I just don't think it would have given Oklahoma enough momentum to stay in, because it was just clear that they were outmatched at every position. Like, wide receivers, the DBs, they were outmatched. The O-line, the D-line, they were outmatched on both sides. Running backs were better. Like everybody, quarterback was otherworldly. I don't know if anybody would have beat Joe Burrow on that day. It wasn't just about his stat line. It was about how he was completing these throws, man. Listen, his receivers are catching the ball. When it's supposed to be on the back shoulder, it's right on the back shoulder. When it's a slant, they're catching it in stride. When it's a go route, they're catching it. It's his guy or nobody, right? Like, I mean, his accuracy, and again, he's going to finish the season depending on the. I think statistically it's out of reach, but he's going to finish pretty close to just under 80% completion percentage on the season, which is nuts. That has to be. I tweeted during the game, like, after that game, I was like, is it time to start talking about where this season ranks in terms of greatest seasons of all time? Like,
right.
What player has had a better season if he finishes this up with a national title, right? Like, I mean,
Joe Burrow. Go ahead.
No, he could throw for 60 touchdowns conceivably after the national title. Yeah, 60 touchdowns.
He was playing NCAA on freshman level. Like, that's pretty much how he looks like every game. His pitch and catch.
Yeah, it wasn't. It definitely wasn't set to all Madden. Like, it was.
Right.
Yeah, it was.
It's crazy.
It will be highly disappointing if he goes to Cincinnati. Which at this point, if Cincinnati doesn't draft him, they should fire everybody in management there in Cincinnati. If he goes to Cincinnati and he's not this good in the league, just because he looks every bit the part of a professional football player. He's reading coverages. He knows where his matchups are. He's making on-time throws. He had a couple of throws that Oklahoma had an opportunity to do something with that they didn't capitalize on. So he's not without fault, and his time clock's going to have to speed up a little bit on some of those throws when he gets to the league, or somebody is going to make him pay. But man, he looks really good. Like the throws are on time and they're on point.
I think when you throw the ball 40 times a game, you're bound to have one or two of those throws, right? Like, if you go
he's not gonna go without flaw. I'm just saying that in the league, a few of those times somebody's gonna make him pay for those, and you just hope that it's not in a position where it becomes detrimental to his team because he's not on the right cadence with his receivers. But man, and he's not going to have receivers that are across the board as dominant as this, or an offensive line that's across the board as dominant as this when he gets into the league. So he's definitely going to have to, he's going to take his lumps, especially going to a team like Cincinnati. It looks like this LSU team could beat that Cincinnati team right now. But probably not, because they're professionals. Like, I don't want to get into that game of college team beating professional teams. But yeah,
I do want to point out, don't think they missed Clyde Edwards-Helaire much in this game.
That other running back, man.
I don't know. Guys, I'm telling you,
that dude
recruits. Really
he runs like he runs like he was mad he was not the starter the entire season. He was like, give me the ball.
North to south.
In a hurry though. Like,
he ran. I think they call it violent running.
He didn't look like he had any guesses as to where the whole you're going to have to play on the other side of the line of scrimmage against that guy, because he's not dancing at all. When he catches it out of the backfield, when he grabs that handoff, dude is gone, man. And I was like, my goodness,
just to put a bow on this talk, I don't know if anyone had anything else to add, but this is what we've always said was LSU's problem, is they just did not have a quarterback to bring all this talent together. And now that we're seeing it, they look unstoppable, because for years they've been recruiting well at all the skill positions. Now you just got a guy who can get the ball to whoever.
We'll see how it pans out next year, because Joe Burrow was not a recruit. He was a transfer. So, we'll see if they're able to recruit a good quarterback, or if they're going to be able to transfer somebody in. So we'll see.
Well, the tough thing about that, I want two things. First is, they weren't able to get a quarterback, but they had the same quarterback last year. They didn't have an offensive system that could utilize the talent they were getting, the wide receiver and a talented quarterback. And they had both last year and really still played very mediocre on offense. So they're giving credit to Joe Brady for bringing it in. Is Joe Brady going to stay there? Because this is got to be at the top of his resume, right?
I mean, he said he was. I don't know if that's going to pan out to be the case, but he said he was going to still be there.
These NFL coaching jobs are about to start settling in, and I got to believe he's going to be somebody's OC, or at least
that's a good point, B.
Somebody's OC. So if you lose the guy who brought the passing game that made the most of the talent and you lose the quarterback, I don't know. What do you look like next year?
Joe Brady is definitely getting a look, no doubt.
For real. They're getting a couple looks. But I was gonna say that. But number two, how do we collectively, I guess individually, feel about Jalen's prospects as an NFL quarterback after not just this game but this season?
Yeah, I saw somebody post something about he needs to start learning how to run tight end drills if he wants to get an NFL career. I just don't see. So most teams, so there's 32 NFL teams, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Each of them carry a backup quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about 64 quarterback positions in the league. You're telling me that you feel like there are 64 guys right now that are better at playing quarterback than Jalen Hurts is?
No, there aren't. But we know how the NFL works. What that means is it's not the best 64 quarterback prospects.
Yeah, I understand. It's about systems.
Who you like and what you think, what these coaching staffs think a quarterback should be and should look like. And so that's going to have a lot to do. I mean, you can say, hey, look what Lamar Jackson, did once he put all those people around him. But how many organizations and coaching staffs are going to go, all right, let's just bring in coaches who can maximize our quarterbacks' skills and talents and not fit a quarterback into what we do. And I don't think every organization is willing to do that. So Jalen's going to have to get in where he fits in. And I don't know how many places he can just fit in.
Yeah,
exactly. It's the Ravens.
Mike.
And that noise has been out there. They've been talking about that for the last 4 or 5 weeks.
But they also got McSorley though. McSorley came from Penn State, and he is honestly kind of the same guy. He's not as sturdy a runner, but he's a scrambling, running, can get on fire.
No,
I'm not saying he's like Jalen, but
the noise is right now is that if you're going to run the type of offense that you're running in Baltimore, why not bring in a guy as close to as you're going to get to Lamar if he's improved enough as a passer as he's shown this year, and just have him waiting in the wings. And then if your quarterback gets hurt, you can still somewhat run your system, right? Like,
which is very likely.
Yeah, I think it would be a smart move for them. Backup quarterback in the NFL is a sweet job.
Yeah.
So backing up the MVP, sitting in the wings, taking time to learn and develop. And, who knows, man, his starting job may come with another team. You guys have seen how it's been going the last few years is that Lamar goes out for a couple of games when you run that much, hamstring, knees, injuries, all that stuff is kind of feels like it's inevitable. He comes in, he balls out for a few games, and then somebody's going to pay him a ridiculous amount of money to go. Carolina seems like it might be, a possible spot with all the rotating door that they got at quarterback. They have nobody to back up Cam, and we don't even know if Cam's going to be there next year. So, I don't think I disagree with the comment. Did you say that guy was talking about he needs to start, both?
Yeah, no, I completely disagreed as well. But I was just saying I saw it happening.
Yeah, I think he showed enough improvement this year to prove that he at least has the potential. At least he deserves a look at being able to play quarterback at the next level. He's going to get a combine invite, and then we'll see if he does his pro day, if he does any private workouts for the media. I don't see that happening, really. I think that he's going to go to the combine, and they're going to evaluate accuracy and arm strength, right? And can he make the throw? Does he have the arm strength to make the throws?
He does.
That need to be made, right? Yeah. And how accurate is he going to be with the football? And those things will determine whether he gets a legitimate shot in the NFL at quarterback or not. So,
yeah.
He accomplished what he needed to do going to Oklahoma. He raised his profile, and that's all you can ask of him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's got a legit shot at least somebody wanting him to be on their team. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that pans out.
I'm rooting for him. For him. I don't know if I've ever rooted for any former Bama guy more. I'm rooting for that kid. I think he's a class act.
Yeah, gotta agree. All right.
Before you move on, I thought it was funny. I didn't see any built by Bama comments after the Oklahoma game.
Oh yeah,
I thought he was built by Bama, right?
Yeah, well, they're only built by Bama when they do well. Now they're on the Dabo train right now because Dabo is from the Bama tree. So he's built by Bama. So that's where they're gonna shift all their energy there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Could have sworn he was already labeled that, but good point.
Yeah, you know how that goes.
Yeah.
All right, so on to the game that actually had some sort of level of intrigue. I did not get to personally watch this game because I had a show last night. But I did keep up with all the updates. Thank you so much, Mike, for keeping me updated on the game.
You're welcome.
But we had Clemson coming out victorious. Props to Caesar for being the closest guy to pick the actual score difference there for that game. What are we thinking about that game? I'm gonna let you guys do most of the talking here, and I'll just come in and chime in on the places where Mike's wrong.
Go ahead, Mike. You got
let's start off where Mike was right.
Okay.
Mike was actually right with Clemson starting off slow.
Correct. He did get that right.
And it looked like Ohio State was fixing to run away with this early on, because they had a great game plan. They were very aggressive and they had pace offensively, and it had the defense on their heels for much of the half. The key to this game was that when Ohio State got in the red zone, they struggled punching it in at times. Granted, you had big breakout runs that led to scores, but when they got into the red zone, they kind of struggled. And I think that's where Clemson flexed his muscle. The defense flexed their muscle and kept the team in it. Had they caved, this game probably would have been a rout too. So big ups to Clemson's red zone defense for stepping in and not stopping the hemorrhaging of sorts. So Mike was right about that with a slow start with Clemson.
All right. Anybody else want to give Mike any props before we talk about all the places where he was incorrect?
Yeah.
We can talk about the places where I was wrong in the score. So let's talk about where I was wrong. I thought that it was going to be a situation where Clemson was going to come out and assert some dominance and Ohio State was going to be playing from behind. That is the exact opposite of what happened. I was completely wrong there. What I did say 100% correctly.
No, we ain't just gonna gloss over that.
Yeah, no, we don't have to gloss over that. We don't have. We
gloss over that. Oh, yeah, I was wrong about that.
There's no glossing. I directly went straight to that.
He said he was wrong.
I addressed it directly.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I gave Mike his props. I said you were right. I agree with Caesar. Then I said where I was wrong. That's not a gloss. That's directly saying I was like, yeah, I was wrong about some stuff, but where I was right, that's a gloss. I didn't gloss. I went directly at it.
All right.
But what I did say, and I didn't see the game, so I don't know how much actual impact he had on the game, but I did look at his stat line. Your man Chase Young had a sum total of
2 tackles.
2 tackles.
Mm-hmm.
I said that they would find a way to get him out of that game. And that's what they did. I don't know how much impact he had. You guys were saying that they were trying to get away from him so much that other guys were eating, and I was like, okay, whatever. He didn't impact the game though. All right, cool. And I know B Will's got to get out of here. Do you want to say anything before you dip though, man? My bad.
Mike was right on the slow start, but honestly, it was probably a toss-up game. I do think the calls affected the game. I think it was a 50-50 ball game. A different game could have gone the same way in the opposite direction. But at the very least, we have to concede that playing a weak schedule doesn't mean you can't play with the big boys when it's time to play with them. Are you tested to the point where we know it? No, but that's what I expected each year, which is once Clemson got challenged, they took that hit. They did start slow. They revved up. And what we saw that last drive to me was kind of the game, the last Clemson drive, which was, all right, we need 7 points. Let's go get it. It was so easy for them to get it when they absolutely had to have it. I don't know if that's the championship experience. I don't know if that's the offensive game planning and coaching and kind of knowing exactly how to tackle Ohio State. But that is what I expected to see from Clemson when it was game time. And we saw that.
No, what you expected was a 2-touchdown victory. That's what you expected.
Oh yeah, for sure. I expected it more of the game. I expected it for the entire game, not just the last drive. But go ahead.
Right, but by your estimation, they shouldn't even have needed that, right? Like because they were heads and tails better than Ohio State.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Right.
I've been wrong before. I will be wrong again.
Right. So like all I'm saying is that the game was exactly what it was. It's about what I expected. I flipped my pick to Ohio State at the end. I thought the game was that close. I thought that Justin Fields had a good game. I thought he had a great game. He had one bad throw. That first pick was on him. That pick at the end was not on him at all. I don't know what the receiver was doing. Like it didn't even look natural for him to break his route off the way he did, and then try to turn back to the other side of the field. It just didn't make any sense what the receiver was doing. And Justin Fields threw the ball right to where he was supposed to be. I mean, he would have had a shot at that ball if he had kept his route going in its natural progression. So Ohio State had the ball with a chance to win at the end. And they didn't struggle moving the ball down the field on that last drive. He made every throw that he needed to make on that last drive. Even on the touchdown drive leading to that, I think he was like 7 for 7 or something like that. He threw in. He had to throw into tight coverages. I was a little, even with the way that Dobbins got off. Because his stat line was crazy in the loss, right? I mean, he ran for 174 yards and they lost.
Yeah.
Right. Now, mind you, more than half of that was comprised of 2 really long runs. But both those runs resulted in touchdowns. So, his touchdown drive. So his impact was felt on that game. I hate talk in terms of just the pure outcome. There were some calls that definitely had an impact on that game. Caesar, you said it during the game. I was a little shocked that they overturned the fumble recovery. I disagree that I think that the receiver needs to bring the ball into his body. He caught the ball, he controlled it, he was holding out here, and he took 3 steps. And if he had done that and gone out of bounds, they would have ruled it a catch. Right? I just didn't understand that call at all. The announcers were split on what it was going to be. Herb Street really thought that he had control. I was with him on that. I can see how they could rule it incomplete, but that ended up being a really pivotal call in that game.
I think the targeting call too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, losing that linebacker
because that changed the whole complexion of the game.
It kept the drive going. Right, like they had they had a couple penalties that kept drives going. That they were dead. Their defense had already done the job and stopped Clemson. Right, so the running into the kicker baffles me. I will never get that. The dude who ran into him wasn't even trying to block the ball.
Right,
he wasn't even diving for the ball, and he runs into the kicker, and then they score a touchdown on that drive. And I'm just like, yo, but you had already stopped him, right? So that's not to say that Ohio State would have absolutely won had he not done that. But, in a game where, again, I thought both teams were evenly matched. I didn't think Clemson was as much better than Ohio State. I called it by 10. Brian called it by 14. I thought, it was a 1-score game. It might come down to who had the ball last. Ohio State had it last. They just couldn't pull it out. And those calls really did kind of have an effect on the game. That's not to take anything away from Clemson. I thought that they did what championship teams do, right? Like they, responded and went down and got touchdowns when they needed to. At the end of the day, I mean, you're talking about they did give up 500 yards of offense to Ohio State on defense. And although their defense played great, they by no means stopped Ohio State. Like, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Again, it's a red zone defense. It was bend but no break for the defense this game.
Right. So
I think too, Mike. Those calls. The closer a game is, the bigger a deal the calls you make or don't make become. Right. And that's why we dismiss old dude's comments from the LSU game, because the game was clearly being dominated by LSU. There's nothing the refs could have done to change the complexion of that game. But when the game is close and it's a 1-score game, those calls become bigger. Right. Because now you do start playing the what if game. Right. What if they called a fumble and not an incomplete pass? Like, what happens? Because I'm pretty sure it could have been Ohio State's game to win had that been ruled a fumble and a touchdown, right?
Honestly, I think they win if that dude doesn't run into the kicker when they got all the momentum and they had them pinned, kicking from their own 10-yard line. Field position I thought would be big. to Ike's point, again about Chase Young, I stated before the game, I didn't think that he needed to have a monster stat line that have an impact on that game. His impact was felt. He did what you guys said they would try to do to try to scheme him out. I don't think it worked because the amount of energy they had to put into stopping him freed other guys up, and they were in Trevor Lawrence's face all night. I mean, he had to make plays with his legs. They forced him out of the pocket. They didn't let him sit back there and throw the ball comfortably. I mean, they got to him. They got sacks. I think they had 3 or 4 sacks on the night.
You realize Trevor Lawrence was the leading rusher for them in the game?
Yes.
Yeah, it was because of 2 big runs he had. Again, like he broke out on that run, and I actually thought it was their backup. I had not realized that he had slid back into the game because they sacked him, and I thought he was done. Like
that was the targeting call.
Was that the targeting one?
That was a targeting.
Oh yeah, you're right. That was the targeting one. Yeah, listen, I thought he was done. I didn't agree with the targeting call at all. Like, I mean, by the letter of it, I just think that the DB did lower his head, but Lawrence was in such an awkward position, and then he lowered his head, and that's why his head got hit. I thought that was bang bang. I was a little disappointed that they made that call, but again, that tacked on 15 yards that kept the drive going, and just it was inevitable. It felt like it was inevitable that they were going to score after that call. So there were
I actually talked about like the idea of targeting when I was watching the first game, and they had the targeting in the Oklahoma player, which was ridiculous. Like, I don't even know what he was thinking about on that play, because that was the most clear targeting I've seen the entire time of getting called. About whether or not they need to do something similar to what the NBA did, which is have levels to those fouls, right? Which like is like they have a flagrant 1 and a flagrant 2. Flagrant 1 is like a penalty where it's like a get the ball or whatever, but the flagrant 2 is the ejection, right? Where it looks like it's intentional, like you can tell this was malicious. I think that they probably need to visit that for football, where it's like the bang bang stuff. Okay, we get the penalty, but like don't kick a guy out of the game when he didn't mean to do it, right? But like the Oklahoma one, that's a clear get this guy out of the game. What is he doing? The Clemson one is probably a little bit more of like like that's one of those things where it's like he wasn't necessarily trying to do it. He did make contact with his head. Okay, cool, that's a penalty, but like don't kick him out of the game for it.
Yeah, it's kind of like how they used to do like the incidental face mask versus the flat out face mask.
The intentional,
yeah. To be clear, the strategy to try to scheme out Chase Young in the first half of that game completely backfired on them. Those other dudes came prepared. They came like they knew they were going to get opportunities based on Clemson's game plan. To double Chase Young. I mean, honestly, I don't know that his stat line would have been much better if they had not dedicated after watching the game in hindsight. I think they could have played a regular game plan against Chase Young and probably had
better offensive production.
Than what they did free. Like, I mean, they acted like Chase Young was all Ohio State had, and that was clearly not the case.
Right? No, they had some guys laying the wood.
Yeah,
they had guys laying the wood.
Those gaps were opening because of all that energy they were putting into stopping him. So I thought, again, I was very impressed with Ohio State's game plan to start the game. I thought they had a great game plan. And with a team like Clemson, you never really expect them to be out of it. And I remember texting B and saying, like, I know I just still feels like Ohio, like Clemson has the momentum to me during the game. And B said, no, I don't know, it's all on Ohio State side. And sure enough, I just wasn't buying it. I just felt like this feels like it's set up for Clemson to win. They came back and won it. Ohio State, I don't think that they have anything really to hang their head about. I'd hate to be that kid that ran into the kicker. I'd hate to be him. That was such and especially when it results in keeping a drive going that ends in a touchdown, right? I thought it was very deflating for their defense at that point, where they again went in there and were poised to at least, the very least, flip field position, keep winning the field position battle, which again, I kind of said it, in our pregame show. I thought it was going to be like a big key for Ohio State was to have short fields. right? Like not have to drive the field, and I think it played a big role in why some of their drives stalled out before they could get to the end zone. Like, constantly having to drive the field and letting Clemson flip the field back hurt them because it kept keeping drives alive with penalties or bad calls or whatever it was. So there were some things that went against Ohio State. That's taking nothing away from Clemson. I think they just did what championship teams do. I think to get to a championship game, you need some calls to go your way. You need a little bit of luck.
Part of it's luck.
Yeah, you need the ball to bounce your way when you're playing a team that I thought Ohio. I'll put it this way: I thought Ohio State was every bit of Clemson's equal in that game. I thought they were equal at quarterback. They were equal at running back. They were equal on defense. I can't think of one part of that game that Ohio State got outclassed, not in one regard.
All right.
So
yeah,
I mean, and we saw this coming into the game. We felt like this was a great matchup of two teams that do a lot of the same things well.
Right.
So yeah, we knew it was. That's why it was. I could not. I was going to say it was going to be a close game because these teams are evenly matched, and so it was going to come down to a one-score game. So yeah.
If Ohio State could have gotten a defensive score, I think they would have won it. It was just the ball bouncing a couple ways type of game. I mean, it'll eat them when they watch the tape, right? And they watch some of the small things that they could have done to, produce a different outcome than what happened. There are some teachable moments on tape there for Ryan Day for his kids, after watching that though, I got to admit. I thought those were two evenly matched teams. B-Hop of the broadcast, I know that he'll disagree with me because he did yesterday. Mm-hmm. I don't think that either one of these teams are on LSU's level right now. Like nowhere close. I like LSU by 2 touchdowns, in a couple of weeks when they play either one. I mean, if either one of these teams come in and play like this, right? Like I don't see how they stand a chance. I don't think it's a game going into the fourth quarter.
I think for me it's going to depend on the health of the receivers on Clemson's team. If the Clemson receivers are going to be more healthy, they're going to be a little bit more balanced in their offensive production. Travis Etienne, from looking at his stat line, did not do a lot except for in the pass game. And so that's a little surprising to me.
Yeah, one big breakout run.
Yeah, but I'm just looking at his yards per carry, and that's not impressive. So I do look forward to seeing that game just because I do feel as if Clemson, from a skill perspective, this will be one of the few times matched up, and from an ability to scheme. So we talk about how Oklahoma came in with a terrible game plan, and they don't have the ability to be physical on the outside. Clemson does. Clemson has the back end guys who can be a little bit more physical, and I do think that they have the defensive minds on their staff to be able to put a good game plan together. So we'll see. I'll wait and see a little bit closer to the game before I make any predictions on what I feel like the score is going to be. But I have to agree with you, Mike. The way it stands right now, between the way that those two teams played yesterday, LSU looks like the class of the college football playoff right now.
Yeah, they're definitely a step above. I don't disagree with you on that. Clemson has the DBs to at least play a different type of coverage than Oklahoma played. I just think that if Joe Burrow is going to be as accurate as what we saw, I think that if they're not going to get any pressure on Burrow, and
right.
Honestly, he's been great under pressure too. So
he's been great against the blitz, right? And so the reason why. And again, I hate to be the guy who's taking moral victories about stuff. The reason why Auburn was able to keep LSU at bay is because we were able to get pressure without blitzing. And so that's the difference, is you're going to have to bring extra guys in. Like, we weren't rushing more than 4 for the majority of that game. It was 3 down linemen, and they were either bringing a linebacker or a cornerback on the blitz, which is, again, it's technically a blitz, but it's still only 4 guys rushing. So we're not overloading them. But our linemen were able to get enough pressure in his face to make him uncomfortable and have to get rid of the ball quick. And we're playing bump and run coverage on the outside. So you're throwing in the small windows with pressure. That's the strategy to be able to make LSU contained and not be able to just run up and down the field on you, right? I don't know if Clemson's down lineman can produce what Auburn's down lineman can, and that's really
Yeah, they
going to
don't
be the
have Derek
difference.
Brown.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have Derek Brown. They don't have Derek Brown,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, like, I mean, he was one man wrecking crew in that game.
No, they got to bring pressure. I mean, that's pretty much what Clemson has been doing all season. They love the exotic blitzes. They like bringing different people from all over the field. That's how they generate their pressure. And I don't see them deviating from that much starting out the game.
So, yeah, we got time to talk about that game. We'll see how that pans out. But yeah, again, right now, LSU just looks like they are the hands down favorite. But as we get closer to the game, we'll see. Soon we'll be able to talk a little bit more about Auburn football. We do have a game coming up ourselves in a couple of days. And we'll see how we are able to get prepared for Minnesota. But we'll be back at you guys when we get ready to talk about that game specifically, checking in on what's going on down there in Tampa. You guys have anything else you want to say about yesterday's games, though?
No.
Joe Burrow, I think that with a total of 8 touchdown score, like 7 passing, 1 rushing, right, yesterday.
Yeah.
500 yards. I mean, shit, man. He even had some rushing yards in that game too, a decent amount of rushing yards. Their lowest point output of the year is 23 points that they had against Auburn. I just don't see how Clemson is going to hold LSU under 40. Like I don't see it. I don't see it because unless they, Georgia, the final score of that game was 37-10, and LSU called the dogs off, just like they called the dogs off yesterday. Some of these scores, I mean, some of the lowest outputs of the year, other than that Auburn game, are in the high 30s. Like I said, I just don't know who stops them at this point. I think they've scored 50 plus like 5 or 6 times this year already. They've scored 63 times. They've scored 53 times. They scored 54 times, 63 times, in the 40s, countless amount of other times. Like I don't know. Like if he's going to be that accurate, if he's going to be 80%, Joe Burrow, I don't think there's any kind of coverage really that, he's just going to put the ball wherever his receivers can catch it, and they have to make, and they've proven all year that they can make tough catches. And their offense, kind of what I think Caesar was saying. As a matter of fact, all y'all might have been saying it. I wasn't completely convinced, but their offense really did open up their passing game really did open up a lot of holes for their running game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's an active participant in their passing game. But without him starting, the way they were throwing the ball, they could do whatever they wanted running the ball as well.
Right.
And so I just wonder, I like to think that Ensminger and Brady are going to have some kind of strategy going in just in case Clemson comes out hot on defense and they start showing coverages, whether they're going to pound the ball at them or they're going to let Burrow do his thing, or I think they'll be prepared either way. And I think they can pull off either game plan because Burrow can beat you with his legs too. He's surprisingly athletic and quick. Right. So, and he doesn't have to do it the whole game. He just needs to bust a few runs to keep you honest. And then you have to start respecting it. And once
they're demoralizing too. Those are some demoralizing runs.
First downs.
Goodness gracious. Because
I think
got them.
I think the things that are the most demoralizing are not even when he actually runs for yardage. It's just when he escapes pressure and then can throw the ball downfield like 30 yards to a guy that's open because your coverage breaks down because of the amount of time the quarterback is out there evading pressure. That's the thing to me that was just like, man, this is not even fair, dude. And
his receivers seem to always know what to do, right? Like they know whether to come back to him or keep going downfield, or some of these
their scramble drill stuff is amazing.
Oh man, he had one yesterday where he ran out of room on the sideline and he just kind of lobbed it up over the DB, and it was a completion. And in any world, if it were any other quarterback, you lob a ball up like that, it's like
It's a
punting
pick.
it. Yeah, it's like
a pick.
punting it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a free for all. And somehow when he threw it, I felt a calm over my soul. Like, you know, whenever he throws the ball, I feel a calm, a peace in my spirit. Like, you know what? Joe's doing it, so it's gonna be all right. Like, you know, because 80%, right? 80%, 8 out of 10 times he throws the ball is a complete pass. So,
It's like Steph pulling up right past half court.
yeah,
it's
you're like,
like
yeah,
you-
you know,
yeah,
he'll probably make it
it's
anyway.
Yeah.
Not advisable, right?
Right.
I would say it was a good decision, but you know, Steph can make shots that most people can't make, so it's a good decision for him. And Burrow's playing that. I mean, he's Steph Curry with the shot right now.
Yeah.
With some of these passes, man, I was literally in awe of what he was doing yesterday. Now I know Oklahoma's defense isn't great, but it's kind of like one of the if you guys have been following Auburn basketball, one of the knocks against us. We just cracked the top 10 like last week.
Only 2 undefeated teams. Auburn is one of them. Just have to give a plug to that.
Right. And the knock has been, well, they haven't played anybody. And I'm like, okay, but like, I get that our schedule hasn't been as strong as some other people, but at the end of the day, 12-0 to start the season in a Power 5 conference is still impressive.
Right.
Now, we haven't gotten into conference play, but Duke lost to Evansville.
Right. It's not as if other Power 5
Austin.
teams aren't losing to some of their competition. So, like,
Yeah,
you got to
like,
give us credit for beating the teams on our schedule.
Yeah, Duke, Kansas, Kentucky all had very embarrassing losses to damn near high school teams. You know, if you're asking them if they would take, because it's not like, even though they play tougher schedules, they may have beaten some of those tougher teams, but, you know, they lost to some teams they had no business losing to. And, you know,
Right.
you know, at some point, to me, and this was Brian was reserving judgment on how LSU would do based on you know, like, against essentially like lesser competition against a Clemson, right? Like he was saying, I don't know, I'm not ready to call that. And I'm like, well, I've got, you know, 13, 14 games here to look at to say I'm ready to call it. Like I don't have any reason to expect anything different, because it just hasn't mattered who the competition is, you know, with this team, right? At some point, you just have to understand what you're watching, right? And these pinpoint passes, I mean, he's doing it with time. He's doing it under pressure. He's doing it on the run. You know, he's throwing it short, long, you know, slants, outs, goes, every route. I mean, he's doing everything. And for what it's worth, not against slouch competition. Again, the turning point for me when I finally came over and just like, listen, this dude might be one of the best to ever do it, was against Georgia. That defense is legit. Man, their D-line is legit. They got DBs, and he just shredded them.
I'm willing to go on a limb and say I was more impressed with that than yesterday, because Georgia.
Oh no, I was way more impressed. Yeah, way more impressive.
Yeah. So it just the stats were ridiculous yesterday, but what he did to Georgia, like he made them look really mediocre, and
really
that's hard
dumb.
to do.
And what was essentially a home game for them, right? In Georgia, you know, right there in Atlanta. I thought that Georgia, going into that game, was the only defense on LSU schedule equal to Auburn's. And I thought that they would watch that Auburn tape, and I thought that they actually had the horses to kind of pull off our game plan. And then I think it was Jeremiah Denson tweeted the game during that game. Like, listen, man, they tried to run our game plan, and you got to have some dogs on that defense to run that game plan, and they didn't have it. They thought they had it, right? And I think they did. I just think I didn't think at that point near the end of the season after Bama, I didn't think I thought we had seen the best of Joe Burrow, but he got better from that.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to play. I wouldn't want to play LSU again right now. Like they're hot.
Yeah. Oh my
They're
goodness.
hot.
I think even if Bama played them again, I don't think it would be close. I think they would beat them even worse because he's playing even better. So, and the defense is healthier, and like I mean, I just saw after when the guy missed that kick, I was just like, oh man, they have a flaw, right? Like they missed the kick, you know, and you know, for what it's worth,
they're not kicking very much though.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, he's not getting a whole lot of practice, right?
Yeah.
But like I thought, you know, again, Oklahoma was clearly outclassed, but to come in as focused as they were and execute at the level that they executed, and for us to not see literally any drop off from drive number one was really, really impressive to me. And big credit to Coach O and his staff for getting those guys ready to play. Again, you're talking about the other quarterback on the other. He's only lost 3 games starting in his whole college career, and he's got national title rings. So, he knew what it was like to play in that game. Nobody on LSU had that experience. So I just think they're complete from coaching staff on down. I'm not sure Clemson is as complete right now as LSU is. And to Ike's point, if they go in with any injuries at receiver and they're somewhat one-dimensional against LSU, I'm gonna call if Ross and Higgins go into that game less than 80%, I don't think they stand a chance at all.
What I want to see is screw Clemson's offense, screw LSU's defense. This game comes down to how good is Clemson's defense really, right? They're going to get put on the national stage, and we're going to see what if you about that life. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure LSU's offensive coordinators are salivating watching the first quarter and a half of film of how Ohio State moved the ball on Clemson's defense. That's what LSU does. So if Clemson can't shore that up, it's going to be a long night.
So here's where I'm at. I'm actually the opposite of you. I don't think that matters. I don't think that matters at all. I think that at this point, when I'm looking at these scores, it's clear to beat LSU, you're going to have to score points, period. So I really do think it's about Clemson's offense versus LSU's defense, because I don't think they're going to stop LSU. I don't think they can stop them.
Then you're going to lose.
Well, no. So the question is whether or not Clemson can, like, if we're so convinced that Clemson's defense can't stop them, the question is then, can Clemson put up enough points to keep it interesting? Yeah. Right? Yeah. Can they score with them?
Can they got to stop them at some point?
You do have to stop them. I don't disagree with that.
That's what makes our game so frustrating, is because we stopped them.
Right.
It's just that our offense couldn't score enough points, right?
But my thing is,
them, go ahead.
My thing about my statement is that if it's a back and forth game, then it becomes a thing of like who gets the ball last, right? And so like what you're banking on is being able, because again, if we're saying that their only flaw is kicking, all right, great. Let's put it in the kicker's hands at some point in time and see if they can win it like that. You have to figure out a way to win this game, and you need to be able to put up points.
Yeah, I'm not tried to do that.
I'm not saying, but has Clemson lost yet this year?
40, they're not going to win. Like, if they can't put up 40, they're not going to win. It's can they win a track meet type game, because that's the only way. I don't think that nobody has held LSU's offense down all year but Auburn. Like, that's it. And
we could literally say the same thing about Clemson, though. Again, I'm not trying to give Clemson a bunch of credit, but they haven't lost yet either. And they've been blowing out everybody except for this Ohio State game. They've had 2 close calls this entire season, right? One of them, that shouldn't have never happened. The other one was actually a good team. So I'm not saying that LSU is going to sit here and roll over them. I'm not saying that Clemson's going to lay down any of that until I see if they've got all of their horses in this fight and if they can come out here and put up points in that game. But we'll see. I mean, time will tell. They've got a couple of weeks to figure it out.
Yeah. I like I said, I think Burrow, man, listen, because of how good he is under pressure and escaping the pocket and throwing on the run, I really just don't think that it matters what Clemson does at this point. He's got the receivers. He's going to get the ball out of his hands. He's going to play whatever game he has to play to win. So, I mean, he's not going to be a sitting duck back there. He hasn't been all season. Auburn just barely pulled it off. Georgia couldn't do it. Some really good teams just could not stop him at all. Alabama had no chance. I don't think that there is I don't think that if your quarterback, even if you play press coverage and you play tight coverage with these receivers, with Chase and Jefferson, if he's going to be, I just think he's going to have an off game And by off, I mean like maybe 60-something% completion percentage on the
Which
game.
is
Christ.
Which is
right, which is
possible.
crazy.
I would
Right.
pray to have
But
an off game like that with my
Yeah, and
quarterback.
60-something% completion rating at
Jesus
this point
Christ.
would be a off game for him. But if they're gonna let him throw in the 70s, you have no shot.
I think for me, you let them march up and down the field. You play bend but don't break, which is what they did against Ohio State. You force them into field goals instead of touchdowns, and your offense produces on the other end. That's the strategy for them going into the game. Great, you can dink and dunk all over the field. We're going to play coverage, and we're going to tackle the guys in front of you. We're going to play tough on that, and we're not going to let you get over the top of us. And we're going to hope that we can turn this into a field goal competition. And we're going to be the guys that can outscore. We're going to make you get 3s instead of 6s, and we're going to be able to produce on the other end. If that's me, that's the strategy going in. We're not going to try to sit here and put a bunch of pressure and blitz all the time. We're going to pick our spots in the blitz. We're going to get them down there into the red zone, and then we're going to compact everything. We're going to restrict the field, not let them do these rub and pick routes. And I think, again, I trust Clemson's staff to put together a better game plan against the LSU team than they did against Ohio State to come out. But if they start out slow again, if Clemson comes out starting out slow against LSU, that's going to be bad. It's going to get bad in a hurry. So we'll see.
Well, and slow on defense, right?
Correct.
Yeah. To make that distinction, if they come out slow on defense and they let them score on their first 3 drives or some bullshit like that,
I'm turning the game off.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I just don't feel like. That's going to be a recipe. I think what they've shown us too is once they get going, they're almost impossible to stop.
Yeah.
Right. So,
and the thing is you have to slow their momentum down early, because once they get ahead of steam, that offense just starts to pick you apart.
Yeah, and they're going to catch it at some point during the game too. So just like watching that Ohio State game, even as strong as Ohio State started, at no point did I ever think Clemson was out of that game.
Right.
Right.
And I said it, and I was kind of tweeting it at B. I was like, I don't know, man. It still feels like a Clemson comeback.
Yeah, you said that. You definitely said that.
Yeah, it was just setting up that way as you were watching it. You were like, oh man, like we've seen this story before. Now, what I would say is for them, for Clemson, I just think that they need LSU to have the same kind of start that they have versus Ohio State somehow. Like I said, I don't know how that happens. It might be penalties. There was a significant moment during the LSU game that really caught my attention. They were blowing Oklahoma out, and some of the DBs were getting into foolish scuffles with Oklahoma players. And one of the DBs for LSU gathered all the guys up on the sideline and said, cut the crap. Stop it. Stop what you're doing. This is dumb. We need everybody for this next game. Right? Like, don't lose focus. And they were showing him, like, giving the speech and getting on guys. And I was just like, man, like, this team is on another one, right? So not only that, but you got that kind of leadership going on, because it was starting to get very chippy. I mean, the Oklahoma guys, they were prideful, man, and getting blown out like that was not easy. It was not easy, and for the players to be able to even corral their guys and say, listen, like, we need to stay focused here, keep our eyes on the prize. Like, this isn't even our last game, and you don't want to be suspended for the first half of it or for the rest of it going into the next one. I thought was, again, just a moment that kind of caught my attention. They focused in on the broadcast, and I was very impressed by that. Yeah. So, they've got a lot of intangibles. I think Clemson has a lot of those same intangibles because their system just kind of produces that. They've got the leadership as well too, from top to bottom. But I'm on the Burrow train until he proves me otherwise. So, again, if he throws for even like 4 or 5 touchdowns in this game, it sounds silly, like 4 or 5 touchdowns, but his stats have been like average of 5 touchdowns a game, right? I just don't see. I think it's going to be more. You have to almost depend on him just having an off game or maybe get a good lick on him and hurt his arm or something, or maybe he trips while walking off the bus or something. Like I just think Burrow's gonna have to stop himself because I don't think that they can stop him. I don't think anybody can stop him, for that matter. So where I'm at about it, I'm looking forward to watching that game. I don't expect it to be much of a contest. I hope that it is because I think when we're watching a title game, you want to see two teams,
Right.
Going
that look like both of them look like they deserve to be there.
Yeah, right. And so now when I'm looking, based on what we saw, yesterday, it didn't matter. Like, I'm not mad that Oklahoma got in that fourth spot because I don't think it mattered of the available teams to put in that fourth spot. I don't think there's any team in the top 10 that wouldn't have gotten what Oklahoma got.
Yeah, they got the waxing proper like they were supposed to.
Yeah. I just don't think there was any team that reasonably could have snuck into that. Utah would have got beaten even worse, I thought. Like, Utah would have been a complete disaster.
The question with Utah was whether or not they would have even scored. That's no disrespect to them, but their offense is just not even on the level of Oklahoma's.
Yeah, it's absolute. For me,
would they have even scored in that game?
Screw them. They had no conversation at all. I'm a Utah hater. I thought.
Well, it would have been Oregon instead of Utah. So because Utah lost in the Pac-12.
Well, right. But they were saying if Utah had won that Pac-12 title game, they likely would have slid in over Oklahoma.
Utah would have been the reason we would have more teams in the playoff.
Right.
Had they got in. It would have been that bad.
Yeah, looking at it, Oregon would have got the business. I don't think they would have hung in there. Just of all the teams that were available, nobody really wanted to play that game in hindsight because
who I would have liked to see in that game though. I would have liked to see. Actually, you know what? Never mind. All of them are trash. They would have gotten beat. So forget
everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah, I was like, man, who are the other people? Baylor, I think, has a better defense, but I just don't. Again, offensively, I just don't know that they can do anything. There isn't anybody else and not that I've seen actual on the field produce anything that says to me, oh man, this defense is legit right here. They could possibly slow them down. This defense is legit. There isn't one. But we'll see again what Clemson's able to do. We got time to figure it out. We'll see what happens on that. But anyway, does anybody else have anything to say about this past weekend's games before we get up out of here?
Oh man, can't wait for the championship game.
Looking forward to it. Yep, looking forward to talking about our game here in a couple of days as well. As always, Twitter and Instagram, we are the War Report. Make sure you are following there, as well as click like and subscribe on the YouTube. Even if you're on the Facebook page, make sure you go to the YouTube and subscribe so that you get the notifications when we're going live so you can come in and have a conversation with us. And we will look forward to talking with you guys soon. Until then, we're out. War Eagle.
War Eagle.